drop those drinks. It's time for Sports Around the Bar. Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by Drew, and I threw the beer everywhere, so I'm hoping this doesn't blow up in my face. Maybe the next one will get me. The next one will get me. And we're glad you're here. Obviously, hope you had a great weekend. We're back now. We're ready to talk about some basketball with this incredibly confusing trade with Evan Turner, maybe one of the biggest disappointments in recent history in the NBA draft, being traded to the Atlanta Hawks for Kent Bazemore, going to the Trailblazers. We're going to break that down. We're going to talk about why it happened. We're going to try to understand it. We want you to try to help us because we're still trying to wrap our minds around this one. And then we're also going to go on and talk about the New Orleans Saints and their 2019 season coming up. We hope to get your opinion on all that as well. Drew, is there anything you're excited to talk about today?
That's got to be the Saints, right? I mean, talk about a team that's been pretty much shunned from the Super Bowl the last 2 years in a row by a fluke miracle and a really bad non-call. So
they've been robbed twice in a row.
It's got to be the Saints, right?
I know Saints fans will sit there and tell you that they've had maybe the worst running luck in NFL history over the past 2 years, having such a good team, having that window open. You got the quarterback who's 40. You're the Patriots without being the Patriots, right? If they were winning these Super Bowls, we'd be talking about the Saints being that organization that Drew Brees is timeless. He never seems to get any older. But because they have those couple bad plays, some their fault, some not, it just has never seemed to quite come together for the New Orleans Saints. Do you think maybe 2019 could be their season?
I do, because just how close they've been these last 2 years.
And Joey wants to talk Cowboys. We are going to talk Cowboys at a later date, but they do have a game here against the Saints pretty early on if you want to give us your opinion on that one too. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please, feel free. All right. I guess I'll just keep talking. And you get mad at me when I interrupt you, but then I give you a turn to talk. You got nothing to say.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I mean, Joey, what's going on, man? The Cowboys, man, they got a tough division. There's a lot going on with the Cowboys organization, not just because of just contracts and trying to keep your players there for a long period of times, but just the teams around them that seem to be getting a lot better than what they're doing. I mean, you look at the Eagles, they lost the run game. They brought in a running back. Now this team's going to be better. I think the Cowboys are going to see some struggles, but I don't think they're off them in the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to. They might not win their first round of the playoffs.
I think they did a good job keeping their base together. I think this Cowboys team is going to be more formidable than they've been in years past. I want to see Amari Cooper working with Dak Prescott for, an entire season before we're ready to sit there and judge whether that trade was a success or a failure. But I got to admit, I like what I've seen to this point. We saw the light switch flip on for the Cowboys when they made that Amari Cooper trade. I'm hoping that only gets better, right? Because if they get that passing game going with Dak, you got running game with Zeke, the defense is there. Losses are not true. This team's going to be formidable, I think.
I mean, I don't want to be stuck on the Cowboys because we're trying to get to the Saints today, but you sit there and look at like the addition of Jason Witten after retiring for 1 year. How much does this old tight end still have, and what can he still give you? And I get that he's not going to be your focal point of offense, but when you give him plays, that means he has to be a value point to that offense, and I just don't know how much an aging, slower tight end can give you that. Nate says, I think it could be the Saints' year for a Super Bowl, and then Drew Brees retires. To be honest with you, man, I hope not. I want to see Drew Brees keep playing. I hope he outlives Tom Brady. There's one thing I wish he could do better.
Wow.
In football.
Off with Brady's head.
In the NFL. In the NFL world, I hope he outlives Tom Brady.
I hope at the very least he stays in the running with him. Again, maybe he decides he wants to ride off into the sunset after winning another Super Bowl. I think he's kind of in that competition with Brady. He's probably 40. He's not getting the same attention to it that Tom Brady is, being a year or two older than he is, but I think the same kind of competitive nature that's made him such a good quarterback is what's going to keep him in the game. As long as Brady's going, I think he's going to keep going too. Because just like they're competitors, right?
Absolutely.
They want to compete. I think that's a separate competition of itself. Is I can go longer than you.
He's not going to beat him in rings, so he's got to beat him in years, right?
Exactly. Well, he might beat him in rings. The Saints team stays together, and you just play till you're 50. All right, Drew. Before we talk about that, let's talk about this Evan Turner trade because we need your guys' help trying to understand what exactly went down because both of these guys paid huge contracts, Evan Turner and Kent Bazemore, but when you look at it on paper, Bazemore is definitely the better player. Neither one's a superstar. Both of them kind of were way overpaid a few years ago. Now they're coming on the last year of their deal, so both guys are going to be free agents at the end of next year. Drew, is there anything you can think of that for Atlanta this made sense for? You're trading for a worse player. You're not getting any better here. You're not getting any younger. You're getting 1 year older, if anything. Evan Turner's been a perennial disappointment. How does it make sense to trade for this guy here? I know you're not winning, but Shouldn't you at least try to put a competitive product on the court?
I mean, the only thing is the under the table kind of stuff where that Bazley or Turner, regardless of who it is not happy. They want to be gone. They're asking to be traded, and their team gave them the opportunity. I mean, that's the only thing that truly makes sense because either team, if you look at it, even Bazley going there, I mean, why? Maybe you can get him next year. Why pay this contract when you can get him next year?
Well, it's the even swap. You're giving the money up. You're bringing on the same contract. If you're the Trailblazers, this makes perfect sense. You're getting better.
Are they?
Yeah, by a couple points per game, couple rebounds, couple assists. We're not talking about earth-shattering.
There's chemistry you got to learn. Does this guy even fit in this organization, this locker room, this team? Does it work out for this? I mean, there's a lot to give up when a guy's been there. How long has Turner been there? 4 years? 5 years? I mean, he's been there for a while.
And Joseph here is saying that he thinks this move is to give Hunter and Reddish more playing time and Turner to back up Trey. I just don't know that you're necessarily... I mean, the game plan should be give those guys as many minutes as they need, right? You're Atlanta. You're not going anywhere unless the plan is to go get another top pick in the 2020 draft, I should say. I don't really see a reason for getting rid of a guy this talented to bring in Turner. I understand the positional kind of breakdown and everything, but I don't understand just trading a guy like this for basically the same money. It doesn't make sense. The only thing I can think of would be Bazemore asking for the trade, saying, look, I've been a good soldier. I signed for that big contract. Will you please just trade me into a contender because you're not using this contract anyway. And Atlanta might have just granted him the chance. That to me is the thing that makes the most sense. And to your point here, Joseph, you're going to play those guys anyway, right?
No doubt.
You're going to give them as many minutes as they need, and then you'll sit Kent Bazemore for whatever. You know, that's the least of your worries. You know he's probably gone at the end of the year anyway. You sit him and play him only when the rookies need rest. You give the rookies every minute that they need for their development.
What's going on, Ian? He just wants to remind us, here we go, Steelers.
All right. And Joey also says the Cowboys will win the East again. Book it. That's bold. That's a good division, man. I think everyone sleeps on the Redskins still. I think the Giants might be down at the bottom. I think that's about the only sure thing in that division, but I could see any one of those three teams winning that division. The Redskins just need to stay healthy. The Cowboys just need to stay consistent and get that back half of the season we saw. The Eagles just need to keep being the Eagles, and I think they're going to wind up being okay, and they need to keep Carson Wentz healthy. Beyond that, every one of these teams has a shot to win this win the NFC East title this year.
No doubt about it. As far as it goes back to the Turner and Reddish, or not, Bazemore, trade. I guess my point is who says that Michael Turner isn't the one that asked for the trade?
Evan Turner.
Evan Turner. God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're right. It's okay.
Names are oblivious to me
thing.
today, I guess.
If he asks for a trade, who's taking that contract? If Evan Turner's the guy going to the Trailblazers saying, I want to move on, and you're the GM, and you call up the Hawks, you're like, hey, I got this guy who's worse, costs the same amount of money. Do you mind just taking him off my hands?
Maybe they just don't see him as worse.
Maybe there's some sabermetric that you're looking at some obscure defense points against in 3-pointers in the third quarter. Maybe somewhere along the line he beats Bazemore, but if you look at points, you look at assists, you look at the rebounds, you look at all the gaudy stats in basketball, or at least the stats at the very top that everybody looks at, Bazemore's a better player at this point in his career. I mean, Evan Turner came up clutch in the playoffs before, but for the most part...
I'm just saying, maybe Turner's the one that asked for, hey, you guys aren't going to use me. You're not going to move me forward. I want to find another team to play for. I'm just saying there is
and Atlanta's like, come on down. Let's give up our better player. That's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me in that kind of scenario.
Maybe they view
I don't see why Atlanta would
Maybe
do
it comes down to the fact that they don't have time.
They just want to have the most highly drafted players on their team they could possibly find.
Maybe. No one knows. That's my point. Is no one knows. So why is it a one guy that's saying this? Why can't it be the other one? That's all I'm getting at.
Because it's the better player, right? You would think the better player asking for the trade, another team would be like, yeah, we'll make that trade. We'll get better. We'll upgrade on the roster.
So do you think he's
if the worst player is saying I want the trade,
so
there's no reason for the
is he good enough
Hawks
to sit there and make a team become a contender?
No, but I think he's good enough to... He's an extra weapon on a contender. He's a guy that if you have him and you're adding 2, 3, 4 points a game over Evan Turner, if you're talking about between replacement and everything, that could be the difference in beating Golden State in one of those games and still getting beaten. I mean, I know Golden State's not going to be good next year or as good next year, but that could be the difference. A couple points can swing a basketball game. I think improving there can be good. A couple assists, a couple rebounds, that can make all the difference. I think this probably has to be the better player saying I want the trade, and then when the Hawks called up the Trailblazers, they said, yeah, we'll take a better player.
So Sharif's completely agreeing with you. He says Bazemore can play. Dude,
Evan Turner less so. I'm not saying he's garbage, but he's not good.
Okay, let me just remind everyone, this is basketball. There's only so many starting roles. There's only so many roles people can play. Maybe Turner didn't fit in. Maybe Turner just didn't get the opportunity where he felt like that's where he can succeed. I'm not saying this is the case, but you have seen it many times before. D'Angelo, or the guy that went to the Nets.
D'Angelo Russell.
Yes,
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell. Absolutely. I was going to say someone we know. That's it right there. That's the guy. Exactly what I'm getting at is he's like, I'm not being utilized properly. Move me on somewhere else. Yeah, he's the one that brought up the trade or whatever, and he's off to the Nets. But look at him. He succeeded. Maybe this is what Turner's looking for.
And far be it from me from saying the Atlanta Hawks make a bad decision in basketball. Okay, maybe that is the case. Maybe they lured him with this guy used to be a second overall pick. I mean, he's got a lot of potential. But I think at 30, when you've been in the NBA this long, like Evan Turner is, the shine's off the rose. Right?
I get you, man. I do.
The bloom is off the rose. I combined a couple sayings.
Just
there.
trying to debate you and banner it.
I get you, but. My whole point here is I think this has to be Bazemore asking for a trade. And I'm kind of with Sharif here when he says Bazemore is a phenomenal second unit player, and I think that's what the Trailblazers are expecting him to be. And I think that's what he's probably going to wind up sliding into. He knows he's not going to go in there and start. But if you're going to go contend for something, you can see guys like Fred VanVleet step up in those kind of moments in the playoffs. We've seen other guys do it, plenty of times in the finals. He can be that guy for the Trailblazers that maybe turns a loss of a series into a win. I think the Trailblazers win this trade hands down. I think Atlanta, they're like, we're going to be bad anyway. Who cares?
Agree with you.
Maybe they're tanking. Is the only other thing I can think of. Maybe the Hawks are tanking, and then in that case, Turner said he wants to trade. The Hawks are like, we want to lose more games so we can get a better draft pick. Maybe in that sense it makes sense. All right. Well, I think we'll move on. Sharif, I'm with you. Turner is kind of trash, but I don't want to call him trash, okay? He's the guy that definitely never lived up to that second overall pick. He's not good. But, yeah, as a second unit guy, maybe he can rehab himself. You give him some more chances out there in Atlanta, maybe we see a career kind of resurge a little bit for a couple of years before he starts to drop off. Yep. I don't know.
Saying who knows why the trade happened.
Exactly. I mean, this is one of the more confusing ones for us.
Absolutely.
We'll move forward. We're going to talk about the Saints here and their 2019 season, Drew. Obviously a team that dominated through the year. If you listen to some people, Drew Brees was the MVP. And I know you've got something to say about that, but... Great year for him in 2018. Is 2019 going to be just as good?
I think he can match what he did last year. I don't think anything pushed him to the edge where I know you kind of look at it as he got a little bit tired at the end of the year. His stats declined. I think it was more the sense that they're like, we need to back off Drew Brees a little bit because we are going into the playoffs. We've already secured ourselves a spot, which, they believe that they did at that point. And they were like, we have to hold our quarterback ready for the playoffs. A lot of other people see it as, he's gotten old, and the time has totally declined on him a little bit. They dropped games to the Falcons, not the Falcons, but they dropped games later in the year that they weren't dropping off early in the year, and it definitely made you sit there and go, oh man, he's losing a step.
And I think more than anything, it was the passing production. You saw the passing numbers decline towards the end of the season. It could be fatigue, or it could exactly be like you said, and this is all game planned, where we need to keep our 40 or 39 or 40-year-old quarterback, whatever he was at the time, we need to keep him as fresh as we can for the playoffs because we know we're going to be a contender. We're already good on record. We're probably going to have a high seed in the playoffs as well. Mm-hmm. Let's try to move the ball towards the running game and take it away, and I think that's why they finished 12th in passing and still finished 6th in the run game. This offense, even though they're third in scoring, dropped all the way to 8th for a unit that just was on fire for like the first 12 weeks of the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Sharif says the Saints will be 13-3, and they're going to go against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year.
Who wins that game? Let me know in the comments, Sharif.
Chiefs.
Let me know in the comments, Sharif. Thank you.
Oh, he said Chiefs.
You relax.
No, he said Chiefs.
Going back to the defense, though, this is the 14th graded unit. They do one thing very well, which is stop the run, which... Again, on paper, until I saw this number, I didn't realize they were as good at stopping the run as they were. I mean, it never really felt to me that they were a dominant run-stopping defense, but they were second in the NFL against the run behind only the Chicago Bears by 3 yards. They were 3 yards off of first place stopping the run. Could that be because they're scoring so many points, teams need to throw? Could it be because their division is more of a passing division with the Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Yes, all of that probably factors in somewhere, but you don't get to second if you're not really good at stopping the run. And I think the Saints are an underrated defensive line and linebacking core that's good at making an opponent one-dimensional.
No, I think one of the biggest offseason moves last year was Demario Davis. He was literally probably the unsung hero of free agency when a team came and decided, hey, I'm going to give you a chance to come here. He went out and got 110 tackles. 11 tackles for loss and 11 quarterback hits. This is one of the reasons why that defense was so good against the run, is because Davis was playing it out of his mind to try to stay with a team like the Saints. This pickup during free agency, like I said again, is one of the best that happened the year before. And they didn't do a whole lot of moving during this offseason, which is a little surprising to me because as well as this team did, they could have done so much better in so many different areas.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Saints will be in danger if that is the Chiefs they wind up playing in the Super Bowl, because this defense was 29th against the pass. You can't go into the Super Bowl with the 29th rated pass defense and expect to do a whole lot against an offense like the Chiefs or even the Patriots that are very good at exploiting your weaknesses. That is one thing that needed to improve, and that is one thing in this offseason I didn't really see a lot of movement on, Drew. No. I was kind of disappointed to see that a little bit. They drafted Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out of Florida. I think that's a decent addition, but he's not a guy that's going to slot in right away. He's a good pass defender. He's very quick as well. He's a little undersized. He's not really going to hit anybody. He's more of a free safety.
Right.
But he's probably not a guy that's going to make too much of an impact this year. We did not see a significant addition to the secondary at all this season. It's almost like it was the ignored thing. I guess they're betting on maybe 2019 schematically or whatever, maybe health. They're going to be better than they were in 2018. That's a pretty big gamble when your Super Bowl window is open right now. Yeah,
I think they believe in Davenport, their first-round pick last year, where they traded up to get that 4.5 sacks was kind of a fluke. It's kind of a rookie year for him. This sophomore year, you're gonna see that number doubled, possibly in the 2 digits. I fully think they believe in this guy.
What they gave up.
I think that's what they believe.
And that's been your point in the past, too.
Yeah, I think that's what they believe. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I think that's what they're going to believe is going to happen. But the one thing I think they're going to miss desperately is Sheldon Rankins. There's no doubt about that guy. He was playing out of his mind last year. You probably won't even see him until week 8. That's half a season where you don't have your best player, arguably your best player on the defensive line.
Well, I think Cam Jordan would kind of object to that.
Well,
I don't know if I'd argue Rankins. But Cam Jordan is still going to be there. He is definitely the influencer in the passing game. You're missing the run defender, and that is huge. I know DeMario Davis was a huge part of this run defense last year. The question is going to be, without the defensive tackle and the entire defensive line in front of them, are they going to be able to make up for that? The other kind of major addition or major subtraction or change here for me is the running back situation. Mark Ingram's gone. You're missing that thunder and lightning you had with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. They tried to replace it with Latavius Murray, who I personally like as a running back. I don't think he got a good shake in Oakland. He had a good year or two there. They moved him on. They said, we're not really interested in paying you. Minnesota paid him a little bit of money, but they made him the backup when they drafted Dalvin Cook. This is going to be his third chance in my book. I think this might be it. This make or break for him. I think the way he runs with power is going to be an excellent compliment. He's the guy that they missed in the early part of last season, which is why they lost to teams like the Buccaneers. They need a clock eater, a guy who's going to take the load and all the emphasis off of Drew Brees, going to plow forward 3.5 to 4 yards at a time, get you those dirty first downs, and waste time, keep the other offense off the field as well. I like this addition, but you're losing a great power horse of a running back in Mark Ingram, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Mark Ingram can start almost anywhere in the NFL as a starting running back, so to lose someone like that is huge. And I get what you're saying is they don't have a power back that can move that 3-4 yards down that's just kind of eats a clock. That's what his purpose is. You'll see him late in the fourth quarter where he gets 10 to 12 touches, and that's it. That's his whole touch is pretty much it. And I get that's important, but when Mark Ingram is gone now, you lose your second option at running back. And I get that Alvin Kamara is always going to be out there for passing downs. When you look at 81 receptions and 4 touchdowns, a little over 700 yards receiving, he's obviously your number one option. But Mark Ingram can and still could catch the ball for any team that puts him in there. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't in there for downs.
Now, Sharif is saying Kamara will have 20 to 25 touches a game, and Murray will be a short yardage and goal line back. Also, Sharif says Ingram is a Raven. We know. But he's gone from the Saints, so we got to talk about it. As for that, I think they're going to give the ball to Latavius Murray a little bit more than everyone thinks. I think they're scared to death of we're going to overwork him, kind of like Christian McCaffrey in Carolina. We're going to overwork this smaller scat back that's better used receiving the ball in Alvin Kamara, and we're going to wind up either getting him hurt or we're going to wind up shortening his career because we're letting him overtouch the ball early on in his career. I think they're going to work Latavius Murray into it. He's probably going to touch the ball 5-10 times a game at the very least. And then you'll see Alvin Kamara get 15 of them, maybe 20 at most. But they're going to try to shift a little bit of the work over to the less talented running back, Latavius Murray, to keep the other guy healthy and also keep him effective. They don't want to have that Todd Gurley effect, where you've over-relied on a guy, you get to the playoffs where you really need the win, and then your best player, or maybe second best behind Michael Thomas or Drew Brees, whatever you want to classify in this offense, one of your stars on the offense is missing because you overworked him in the regular season. But we can move on to the schedule if you're ready.
No, we should, man. I'm sorry. I was trying to look something up.
You're all right. What are you looking up?
Who's the quarterback that does the Wildcat?
Taysom Hill?
Hill, there we go. That was the name I was looking for. Maybe this is an outbreak season for Hill. I know he was used a lot last year. Maybe they're expecting him to really come forward. This guy, as much as they're saying, he's a quarterback, he's used as a running back. Maybe now they've came up with, hey, this stuff worked, this stuff didn't. You're going to see a lot of it this year, and they're willing to take an older back in Murray and let a younger back in Ingram go because we're going to use Hill a little bit more.
I certainly hope not.
I mean, it's a possibility.
I certainly hope not. I understand the thought process, but I think as long as Taysom Hill is on the field and Drew Brees is not, your team is nowhere near as effective. I know it's a gadget
Hill
play.
and Brees were out there at the same time, too.
Once in a while. I know they lined up Hill as a wide receiver. They like him as an athlete. This is maybe the kind of most college response to an NFL problem here is we're going to use Taysom Hill as a guy that can do everything. He can be a running back, he can be a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm not against him being on the field, but I don't want to see him on the field and Drew Brees coming off because still, in my opinion, Drew Brees is the most effective weapon out there. If we're going to do that,
I was getting at. I was just saying.
It needs to be the end of the season, and we're resting Brees because we're already locked up in either the 1 or the 2 seed. But even that, I think you should play for the 1 seed because you need the playoffs to run through New Orleans if you're going to win the Super Bowl. With teams like the Rams and the Bears and that entire NFC East we talk about, the Seahawks are good. There are too many great teams in the NFC to have to go and play a road playoff game. I think they need to focus on keeping the playoff road through their home arena down there in New Orleans. Otherwise, what are you playing for? You know this is going to be a playoff team. Everybody knows this is more than likely going to be a playoff team unless something happens to Drew Brees. You need to if you want to win a Super Bowl, you need to make that road as easy as possible. How do you do that? You get in front of your home crowd.
Perry said the Saints have proven the last 2 years they aren't reaching the Super Bowl no matter how close they get. I think that's a little harsh, but, I mean, when bad luck hits you, it hits you hard.
Good teams overcome, though. Or great teams overcome, I should say. Good teams, sometimes the things break away from them and they don't quite get there. And I think that's where the Saints have been. I mean, everyone wants to point to that blown call last year. I know there's not much you can do about Stephon Diggs juking out your defender except for tackle better. But everyone points to the blown call, and you could have won in overtime, too. Let's not forget, they threw the interception and everything, set up the Rams to go kick a field goal, and it was game over. You had the opportunity. You got the first ball. You could have just scored a touchdown and said, we're done.
Yep. I think one of the last things we need to pay attention to in this offseason is the retirement of Max Unger. I think how important this loss is, where they little freaked out a little bit. They went out to their free agency and went out and signed Nick Eason. With that, and there's a reason why the Vikings let him go, is he wasn't working out. But then they went out and drafted arguably one of the best centers in this draft, and Eric McCoy. Do you think that they fixed this solution, going out and getting 2 guys that can play one position?
They got punched in the gut because Max Unger retired after the first wave of free agency. He retired after all of the great offensive linemen were gone. So if the Saints wanted to pay a guy to replace him and say, our number 1 priority is protecting Drew Brees, that opportunity was gone. Again, this was a sucker punch from one of their own players. I like what they've done. I think this is a pretty good response, or at least the best response possible they could have done short of trading for somebody. But if you're the Saints, this is a complete team. You don't need to be trading for guys right now. You don't need to be giving up too much capital or too many draft picks because you want to stay good. I think this is the right move. I think they did everything within reason to replace the position. Does it work? Maybe not. And maybe we're going to sit there and say, wow, man,
losing Eric, they got 2 guys.
Losing Unger was huge, but I think they did. This is a pretty appropriate response here, I think. They did everything they could to shore up a position. They made the best of a bad situation.
Worst case scenario, they got 2 centers that can play 8 games each. Worst case scenario.
Right. And you've got one that's, 22 years old in Eric McCoy, or 23, where he's going to have time to develop. He's going to get better, even if this year isn't that year. As long as Drew Brees doesn't retire, they're always going to be in the running, or at least dangerous of a team.
Right.
I'm okay with the long game on this, even if that's what it takes.
Perry, that's Thanos' glove. Marvel, Thanos, yeah.
Go watch Endgame. All right, we'll talk about the schedule if you're ready.
Let's do it.
Starts week 1 with the Houston Texans, and then it doesn't get any easier on week 2 when they have to go on the road to the Rams. 2 playoff teams from last year to start the season off. 4 if you count Cowboys and Seahawks. This is a tough run at the beginning of a season for a team that had a pretty respectable finish like the Saints did.
Yeah.
Did they get screwed by the schedule makers? We say that a lot, but maybe it's just everybody's good in the NFL. There's so much parity.
Yeah, you're definitely on that train because I was saying that thing. I'm like, man, these teams are getting screwed, and you're like, no, man.
Everybody's getting screwed because everybody's good. Yeah.
But when you look at this, you look at the Texans, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, the Bucks, and the Jaguars. A 6-game stretch where you're facing, arguably, some of the 6 best defenses in the league against the number 1 offense.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Number 1 offense, not the number 1 offense.
I absolutely agree, and not to mention, I think the Saints are going to be much better on the front half of this season. Everyone said, they had a slow start in 2018. Let's not forget, Mark Ingram was gone. They were missing part of their backfield, and again, they didn't want to overwork Alvin Kamara, I believe. So how much different are they going to look in 2019 when they have Latavius Murray off the get-go? They have Javorius Allen who could step in and play that scat back role as well for them.
Right.
They're going to start off hot. I think they're going to win the first 6 games here, and we kind of agreed they're going to beat the Texans because that Texans secondary is not going to be good enough to keep up with Drew Brees.
Agreed.
They're going to beat the Rams in a shot game on the road because they have the running backs. They have Drew Brees. The Rams are going to be a little hungover from the Super Bowl. They're not going to be quite ready for a team that's as hungry and has been so blue-balled like the Saints have been these past 2 years. I think the Saints are going to come out ready to murder somebody after they got denied that Super Bowl appearance, and this is that team that took it away from them. When you talk about motivation, this is the Saints game through and through. I think they win this one hands down. Does it get any easier on the road with the Seahawks?
No, it really honestly doesn't. You're going to sit there and face a team like the Seahawks. Russell Wilson is trying to prove the reason why you gave him all that money. But I don't think it matters because the Saints' defense, even though they didn't rank that high in passing, the run game is the most important thing the Seahawks have going for them. And they're facing one of the best run-stopping defenses of last year.
Kenny, obviously the Cowboys fans are out in force today, man. Good to see you. He wants to know how what we think about the Cowboys this year.
See you, Perry.
We haven't broken them down yet. But we do like what they've done. Not necessarily in the offseason. We like the way the team looks. They haven't necessarily got much better, but they haven't necessarily gotten much worse. They lost guys like Cole Beasley, but if you listen to me, I don't think Cole Beasley was that great of a talent to begin with. They replaced him with guys like Randall Cobb, who, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling. I think the Cowboys will be just fine. The real question is, what does Amari Cooper look like with Dak Prescott? Because if they can throw and then they have Zeke to run the ball, this team's going to be dangerous.
Yeah,
Let's talk about them week 4 because they're right here. They faced the Saints. This is one of those few games I think the Cowboys should go into it as an underdog because the Saints, unlike the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys have a better defense in my opinion, because they have a more complete defense, I think the Cowboys are going to struggle here. When Zeke is taken out of the game and all the pressure is on Dak Prescott and you're going up against a veteran like Drew Brees, this is going to be a struggle. You have to go on the road to play in New Orleans if you're a Cowboys fan. I think the Saints eke out a 4th win against the Cowboys, shutting down 4 straight playoff teams.
This is by a small margin, and yeah, all your Cowboy fans are probably sitting there going, well, Sheldon Rankins isn't back yet. Their best run defender's not back yet. But Lattimore, their corner, their young corner that's, I think this is year 3 for him, can cover Amari Cooper. So after Amari Cooper's taken out, who else is going to be part of it? If Zeke is everything, at some point in time, it's not going to work. And you've seen that as a Cowboys fan.
And more than that, I believe run defense is something a unit does more than a single player. Pass rushing, you can lean on one guy, right? You can have your Cam Jordan get after the quarterback and make 15, 20 sacks a season and have 70, 80 hurries, and all of a sudden one guy can influence it. I mean, look at Chicago when they added Khalil Mack, thank you. You look at this run defense, losing one guy, even though it will hurt them, they're still going to be formidable. They were the 2nd best run defense last year. They were 3 yards off the lead, not by accident. They have a lot of good run defenders, and yes, they're missing their best one, but I think maybe they go from 2nd to 7th, 8th, 9th.
It's still really good.
Zeke is going to have a hard time in this game. You're not going to be able to lean on Zeke. I think you're going to have to ask Dak Prescott to outshoot somebody like Drew Brees, and I just don't think Dak's there in his career yet.
I completely agree. And one of the biggest reasons during this offseason the Cowboys were brought up is because Jerry Jones sat there saying that he's the highest paid quarterback coming up in the league, when they decide to pay him. I don't think he's earned that yet. And that's where my point is when Lattimore takes out Amari Cooper, how...
This one's going to explode. Hang on. Bomb diffusing. Oh, we're good. We're good. It'll just be flat instead of exploding.
When he takes him out, who else can you rely on? Is it Randall Cobb? Is it Jason Witten? Is it Zeke Elliott out of the backfield? Which he can do, but how much do you rely on him? It has to be such a defensive game. And when you sit there and look at what Drew Brees has done, even against these tougher defense, even this is a long stretch in week 4, it's early in the season. This 40-year-old quarterback feels like he's still 29.
Now, Kenny says the Cowboys have had their number in past years. The other thing I'll argue is any given Sunday. I think we see a lot of turnover with the NFL. We see a lot of guys kind of come and go on these teams. Just because you had success against a team in years past does not always mean you're going to have it in the years to come. Yeah. I think this is going to be a great game. Maybe by week 4, we're going to see the Cowboys get a worn-out Saints team that just had to play the Seahawks on the road, the Rams on the road, and the Houston Texans, all playoff teams, and they're able to take advantage of it. But I got to say, Kenny, at least on paper, I'm going to give the edge to the Saints. This one's at home in New Orleans. They have a great run defense to neutralize Zeke Elliott.
Yeah. Even out of the Texans, the Rams, the Seahawks, in my opinion, this was their closest win victory. I think this can go either way, but I got to give to the Saints right now.
Let's talk about the next game. The Buccaneers. This needs to be a win, right? They dropped one last year, and they were okay. But I think if you're going to capture home field advantage, you need to dominate this division or at the very least do very well.
Right.
And you got to beat a team like the Buccaneers, whose defense has only gotten worse. Was terrible, only gotten worse. Passing game was great last year, only gotten worse. Running attack, only gotten worse. Or is the same and not any better, I should say. The Buccaneers should be easy prey. And it's not week 1. We say week 1 is a weird week. You never know what's going to happen. This is week 5 now. The Buccaneers are going to have to find a Saints team in full stride that have played 4 playoff teams. They're ready to rock.
Even if some fluke, this was 4 losses in a row.
They're going to take it out on the Bucs.
They're going to take it out on the Bucs. I don't think that Bucs match up well for them. They saw them at week 1 last year, and they had that weird loss where the Bucs just went nuts. But Ryan Fitzpatrick's gone.
Exactly.
And if everyone believes in Jameis Winston, which even though I never believed in this guy, and I sat there and told you guys last year, he is playing out of his mind the end of that season, 2018. He's not going to do it at the beginning of this season. I just don't think he has the capability of being good for 17 weeks.
Very similar story to the Jaguars the next week. I think even though this one's on the road, they have to go to Duval County to match up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They should be able to beat a team that just on paper is not as talented as the Saints are. I mean, offensively, they're a team that wants to run the ball more. I know they signed Nick Foles, and everyone's going to say the passing game is fixed. They don't have the receivers to do it. And that's how you beat the Saints, is you're going to need to outpass them and play good defense. The Jaguars might play good defense in this game. They might limit the Saints a little bit, but I think this defense that the Saints have are going to frustrate Jacksonville because Nick Foles is not going to be able to do it with these receivers.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But when it comes to the fourth quarter, what do the Jaguars still have? What is their defense that's played 75% of the plays and percentage of time out there already for the first 3 quarters, because their offense is doing a lot of 3 and outs. And that's not because I think highly of the Saints defense. I think so lowly of the Jaguars offense. You got Leonard Fournette, who is going to be your main focal point, who's seen so far that they don't want to be part of this offense. He doesn't want to be part of this team. Does Nick Foles fix that right off the bat? I just don't see it. Nick Foles has been in the Eagles organization before he got his run. He was there before, did well, left, and came back and did well. He needs to spend a little bit of time before it starts clicking everywhere.
Then things take a turn. 6-0. It's pretty. It's been a good start. I mean, obviously we think highly of the Saints. We're proving it here. But then they get the Bears on the road, and we see this as the first loss of the season for them, because going on the road to Soldier Field, a team with a defense like the Bears, and even though they'll probably be able to neutralize the running game, we don't really think the Bears are going to be a power running force. We're not going to see a team trying to jam the rock up the middle like some other squads have tried to do. This is a team that's going to want to dump the ball off to Tyreek Cohen, try to use his athleticism to outrange guys like Demario Davis that, even though he's a good run stopper, isn't the most athletic linebacker in the world. They're going to do some creative stuff. On top of it, you have to go on the road to Soldier Field. Mitch Trubisky will be the first guy to beat Drew Brees in 2019.
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be all due to the backs that the Bears have. And not only is it Cohen, I think it's also Montgomery, their young running back that they took out of this draft, who I have said from the very beginning, this is the most exciting running back I have during this draft. I think this guy's capable of pass blockage, running, and catching. I think this guy can do everything you need him to ask him to do. So when Cohen finds himself out of there because he's not an every down back, they're putting another guy that's just as good in there.
And the Saints should have no problem stomping out the Cardinals. I look at this game, Drew. Obviously, it's one of those ones that there's a pretty big mismatch. You have one of the worst teams in the NFL from last year, actually the worst statistically, going up against one of the best ones in the NFL. This needs to be a stomping. I like Kyler Murray. I like what they did on offense to try to bring in some weapons here. The fact of the matter is they don't have the guts of the team in the Arizona yet. They don't have the offensive line. They don't have the defensive players to keep up with a team like New Orleans. It's an easy win.
Right, it absolutely is an easy win. The only way they can really do this is somehow that Murray is going at complete nuts, and he's matching well with Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk and their other young receivers. They just got this drafted this last year, but beyond that, there's no way. The Saints win this game easily.
Moving forward, they have a divisional stretch where they play the Falcons in Week 10 at home, then they get the Buccaneers on the road and the Panthers after that.
And the Falcons right after that.
This is going to be an important stretch for them, and we see them going 2-2, dropping both games against the Atlanta Falcons, Drew. Why is that?
Well, it's not because we think the Atlanta Falcons are better than them. I think it's because you nailed it on the very beginning of this episode when we talked about what they had in their offseason and what they have on their rosters. Drew Brees at some point in time is going to get tired. And we talked also about how tough this schedule is. This Falcons team, which is one of my favorites to win a Super Bowl that a lot of people are not talking about, this team is still good. Yeah, 2 years ago, they gave up one of the biggest deficits ever in a Super Bowl win. Last year, they did not do well at all, but they lost arguably their three best defensive players on that roster. And they were still in almost every game that they could think of. If this team has a chance to stay healthy, this team is dangerous regardless of where you face them.
And no, we don't give out a lot of sweeps in division, but Martavius, we're right there with you. He says his Falcons will get the sweep. We agree. We think the Falcons match up very well against the Saints. They're one of those kryptonite teams that, even though it's in division, you hate each other. Usually those games wind up split because you're so evenly matched, and whether there's more talent on one side or not, just the attitude comes out. You play harder in those games. We think the Falcons are going to be able to take both of these games because they're able to throw so well. They're able to attack the weakness on the Saints team, which has been the secondary. Do I think a fourth-round safety changes that for the Saints, which is like their biggest addition this year? No, it doesn't. You're going to see guys like Julio Jones go wild here. You're going to have other guys like Calvin Ridley maybe have that breakout game too, or Mohamed Sanu. You're going to be able to take away one or two of them as the Saints. You're going to get some sacks on Matt Ryan, but you're not going to go dominate this Falcons passing game with the defense that was ranked 29th last year.
And anyone that's going to sit there and say, well, the loss of Coleman might be huge for that Falcons offense, let's not forget Freeman. This guy, if he could stay healthy, was one of the reasons why he was one of the highest paid running backs in the league. And trust me, if I've ever said anything about this team, I was high on Coleman. But I fully believe that Freeman can do it alone if he could stay healthy.
And I've always been a Devontae Freeman guy. I will admit, I think for a long time, Atlanta wanted to give the job to Coleman, and it never really worked out. I mean, he clearly was not as talented as Devontae Freeman, but they just kept trying to feed him the chances and kept giving him the looks and say, look, just do better than him a couple games, and we'll maybe make you the starter. Never really panned out. I think missing him will be a bit of an issue, but I still believe the Falcons, with that passing game and the way Freeman catches out of the backfield, are going to be too much for a Saints defense that isn't as athletic as this offense is for Atlanta.
Agreed. Sean, what's going on, man? Hope you're having a great night. Kenny, I'm agreeing with you. I think the New Orleans and the Falcons game are going to be great. So if you had the
They're almost always shootouts. They're amazing. They're fun to watch. I hope at least one of these winds up on prime time.
Well, I was going to say, if you had the NFL package, Week 10 and Week 14 are a must to watch these two teams play against each other.
Let's not skip the other two divisional games. Then we'll move on at the Buccaneers in Week 11, and then you get the Panthers in Week 12. We see them both as wins. Obviously, the Buccaneers, they're not there. We kind of talked about that before. On the road, at home, they're totally outmatched by the Saints. I think last year was a bit of a fluke. You don't even have the quarterback who beat them last year.
Right.
The Buccaneers have only gotten worse as a franchise, which to me is amazing. That's going to be one of my more critical episodes where I'm talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I like that team. That's my favorite NFC South or NFC team. This is a win. This is a win for the Saints. They're going to sweep the Buccaneers. They're going to lose two to the Falcons. The question is, what do they do against the Panthers? If you want to win home field, you need to have a great record in the NFL. You've got to do well in the division. Can they beat Carolina twice?
I don't see it, man. Even though all signs are pointing towards Cam Newton is going to be playing at this point in time for sure in Week 12 against the Saints. You find yourself in New Orleans. You find yourself in one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. You find yourself in a situation where you could be fully healthy, but does it really matter if this team is on a hot streak? I get they just lost the Falcons and won against the Bucs, but this team at this point in time in our schedule, we only have them with 2 losses. When you look at a divisional rival like the Panthers, who were not in the playoffs last year, weren't even close, it's like you don't belong in the same categories we do.
Can I just point out the best comment we've had all night?
Yes.
Sean said, Jake, you are so right. I don't even know what you're talking about, Sean, but keep talking about it because you're right on track. That's all I can say. Everyone else in the comments, step up your game. Just, let me know when I'm right. But you're right, man. I think the Panthers... I think the Panthers are going to struggle in this matchup. I think the Saints... You look at the way they pass. I know they play each other tough. I know the Panthers have a good defense, or at least historically have, but...
Yeah.
We've seen this defense kind of slide off, especially last year. I can't bet on it. We don't know what Cam Newton's going to look like
Davis,
in all of 2019.
Davis, yeah. I mean,
Thomas Davis.
God, names are messing me up today. God, it's terrible. Moving forward. Davis, I was close. Him being gone is a huge loss. That's your run-stopping linebacker. Kuechly is more of a cover guy. He isn't really that guy that's going to put his nose up in the middle because every time he does, he's getting a concussion. It's a huge loss in that defense.
You're not running on this team, and that's okay. You're able to throw on them because their secondary has been abysmal, especially since Josh Norman left. They've had struggles on that end of the ball for years at this point. Not abysmal. They're not the worst in the league, but they're not very good. That's how you attack them. I think this is the game where Michael Thomas takes over, and we see Cam Newton struggle to go up against one of the teams that's good at taking away the run like the Saints are. This needs to be a win. Let's talk about Week 14 moving forward because this is pretty much the point last year where this team started to tail off a little bit. Do you see a similar kind of scenario? I think it's possible, but you're talking about the 49ers. Let me answer my own question.
Okay.
It's possible that you see a tailing off. But at this point, do the 49ers have the weapons, the firepower, whatever it takes to beat a team like the Saints?
Last comment before I go into the 49ers. Kent said Cam can't even buy a seat, let alone get a win from New Orleans.
We say that, and they'll wind up finding a way to steal a game. And we'll be like, that's just in division, right?
Yeah,
where
that's what it is.
Everybody hates each other because you bashed heads for 2 games instead of 1, and you get to see them every year. You know they're coming up. Maybe they find a way to steal it. Right now, at least on paper, we got to go with the Saints.
When you talk about the 49ers, I mean, this is a team that could literally scare anyone depending on the week. And when I say by depending on the week is who's their starting quarterback? Is it Jimmy G? Is it anyone else that they have on their roster? Because they went to 3 of them last year. So, that being said, you know who's the starting quarterback in the Saints organization. More than likely, Drew Brees is going to be there. I don't know why he gave me that look, but...
No, I'm listening.
He's going to be there. He's going to be the starting quarterback. So regardless if it is Jimmy G, you cannot imagine Jimmy G could outshoot Drew Brees, right? This late in the season in Week 14?
If Jimmy G is here, I will say there's a chance, right? Yeah. I mean, we've seen him pull off those miracle wins. He's like 6-1 as a starter, or 7-1, or 7-2 as a starter, or something like that. But he's never here. This is Week 14. You're talking about him surviving 12 more grueling weeks and a bye week, obviously.
Yeah.
Before this point, I can't gamble on Jimmy G being healthy at this point. By now, he's torn an ACL. He's broken too many ribs. His back is out. He's not on the field. And Drew Brees, the Iron Man, keeps rolling on, and he keeps staying on the field. Part of it's protection. Part of it's also just whatever their natural tendencies are. We've seen Jimmy G get hurt at this point. At this point, I can't gamble on the 49ers having a healthy team, healthy enough to even challenge the Saints. This, to me, is one of the easiest wins in the schedule. 15, as much as I want to sit there and say should be an easy win for the Saints, they get the Colts at home. Division rival of my Titans here, Drew. Do the Colts get a win here in what might be a pivotal game for the AFC South race?
What's going on, Matthew? I'm glad you could join us. At Week 15, I think the Colts can beat them. I really do it. I fully believe in Andrew Luck. I fully believe in that defense that is young and still up and coming, can stop some of these high-powered offenses. That's the reason why you look at him, who did well against the Chiefs and other teams alike. So I do see it as a good possibility where this team can do an upset. But I actually see these last 3 weeks as a real big struggle for the Saints, because not only are they going against the Colts, they're also fighting against your favorite team in Week 16 against the Titans, and then fighting another division rival against the Panthers in North Carolina.
Now, Martavius is saying he thinks both Kyle Shanahan and Sean Payton are great coaches, which you're absolutely right, Martavius. I'm 100% on board with that. But you think it boils down to who outcoaches who? I think it's just talent. You look at the rosters. Remember, Sean Payton went a few years there after their Super Bowl run where that team was terrible. They didn't have any talent. They didn't have anything else. They had Bounty Gate after that. They kind of got sabotaged, and the Saints weren't very good. What happened after that? They built the team back up. The 49ers, to me, I look at this roster, they don't have the same caliber roster that the Saints do. They have an aging Richard Sherman that everyone wants to point to because he has a big name, but he's a 32-year-old cornerback at this point. How many 32-year-old great cornerbacks do you know in the NFL? Not many. It's tough.
Champ Bailey was the last one I could think of right off the top of my head.
All right, and not every guy is Champ Bailey. And as much as I like Richard Sherman, as much as he's hanging on, he's probably not the same player. The 49ers had a defensive line.
Yeah.
Beyond that, they could use some linebackers with guys like Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman gone. They need help in the secondary as well. They don't have the same roster. I think that's what it more boils down to. But you're right. I like both of those coaches. I think even Kyle Shanahan might be one of the most prolific minds in the entire NFL. I wish he was on my team.
Yeah.
But you can only scheme so much when you don't have the physical ability to outplay somebody.
Yeah, that's why you see quarterbacks succeed so much in his offense. But in Week 15, when he plays the Colts, the Saints, this is not just any quarterback with any kind of system. This is Andrew Luck. This is one of the best offensive minds beyond being a coach and a player that can sit there and beat you almost at any point in time when he's on the field. It doesn't matter if you're a tight end, a running back, or a wide receiver. Even though he favors tight ends, this guy seems to be able to put up points against any defense.
I totally agree. And you look at this Colts game in Week 15, man. It's kryptonite. Like we said, if you want to beat the Saints, you throw the ball, you outscore them, and you try to get after Drew Brees. And they can do that. They've signed Justin Houston. They've tried to improve their defensive line. They have guys that can stop the run or at the very least limit the running attack. And guys like Alvin Kamara in their linebacker, Darius Leonard. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Did I get that right?
No, you got it right. Yeah.
The Colts have every piece to beat a team like the Saints. And they're just set up well to do it. I think they've gotten better. They've got guys like Malik Hooker in the secondary who are going to be able to double-team Michael Thomas. This is going to be a struggle game for him. Maybe Latavius Murray can break out and he can pound the rock up the middle against the Colts, against a defense that's maybe not quite as good against the run. Short of that, they're going to struggle against a team that's able to throw and match them pound for pound in the passing game.
And I don't have it in front of me. Did they also draft a young corner in Rock Ya-Sin?
They did.
Which I'm huge on if that was the case.
I know you're a Rock Ya-Sin guy. I think he's terrible. I think his tape in college was not very good.
We'll see. Well, this will be a great game for him.
Well, can I say why?
But this will be a great game for him to sit there and prove that you're wrong. Go ahead.
Well, he's big, right?
Yeah.
And NFL players like big cornerbacks
right.
because you get to cover those big receivers like Michael Thomas who are tall.
Yeah.
The only problem is the guy struggled at Temple, okay? Which is Sun Belt in college football. He was good at times. He was elite at times. He looked great. And then he had games at Temple where he looked very bad. Yeah. And now you're going to go play Michael Thomas, and you're a rookie, and you struggled at Temple? No. I don't think this is a Rock Ya-Sin game, Drew. I think you put Rock Ya-Sin the farthest away from Michael Thomas you can on the field.
This will be
maybe this is me being a
Jared
hating
Cook
on him, but
game where he's covering Jared Cook as a nickel.
Exactly.
This is the game I'm talking about. I don't know what
or
you're
you
talking
cover
about.
the second tight end or something. You
You can't
put him on Traquan Smith here, Drew.
What rookie is facing Michael Thomas?
Marcus Lattimore. But the problem is they're on the same team. There are a few. That can do it.
No,
I think Cleveland's rookie. Cleveland's rookie Ward from last year, Denzel Ward, could probably do a good job of limiting him. Nobody takes Michael Thomas out of the game.
No one takes.
But you limit him, and that's how you beat the Saints.
No one puts baby in the corner.
Right? You limit Michael Thomas, and that's how you beat the Saints. Rock Ya-Sin isn't limiting anybody. He struggled at Temple at times. That's why I don't like him.
If I remember correctly, I think he got the ball thrown to him I'm shooting like 150, and he caught it 125 times. I'm not for sure how many targets he had, but it was not far off of how many catches he had. You don't cover this guy. He is open when you think you have him covered. So you don't put a rookie against him. That's all I'm getting at.
Sean's all in on the Buffalo Bills getting a new coach. I will say this. I don't think it's quite yet time to give up on the coach you do have. I think the Buffalo Bills just need to focus on the roster at this point. If anything, you need to get a more competent GM. I know they just rolled over again, but I want to see better additions to this roster, and then we'll see the Bills improve. I think they just aren't quite physically talented. It takes time to build an NFL team. Usually it takes a season or two to come from the bottom to the top. I think the Bills, if you believe in Josh Allen, just work on this offensive line, add some more weapons, because we agreed they took a step in the right direction. They're not quite there yet. Bills will be better.
Right. Well, let's finish out the last 2 weeks. In Week 16, they go on the road in Nashville. Are we going to be at this game?
Yeah, maybe. There's a good chance. But let me say this. I want this to be a win for the Titans. I want this to be a game that they upset them, because these are the games that the Titans win.
You were trying to talk me into it.
They step up against these good teams, and by now I'm hoping the Saints are tired. They're like, man, we just played a great team in the Colts, as much as that burns me to admit it. And maybe we just want to keep Drew Brees healthy. Maybe the Titans come out and they play good defense, and Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback at this point, and he can throw a little bit on this offense. I don't know. The Titans, as historically a running team, will struggle against the running defense here. I don't know. I don't know that this is going to be the game that the Titans win. Obviously, on paper, they're outmatched. But historically, when you look at it, they beat teams like this and then lose to teams like Buffalo and Cleveland when they weren't good. They lose to the guys that aren't good, and then wind up 9-7.
This is exactly a game where
7-9.
This is exactly where the game the Titans win, where they keep themselves just on the cusp of, can they make a wild card?
And then the answer is no. But they won't win this one. All right, we picked the Saints to win it. We said the paper outweighs any kind of tendency we've seen in years past. We had to sit there and gamble on Michael Thomas being able to make enough of an impact. We gambled on Alvin Kamara coming out and needing to play this game, and the Saints needing to win to get a number 1 seed, because you look at the Rams. The Rams are going to be in contention more than likely, right? I mean, we saw the way they looked last year. Super Bowl hangover or not, we believe they're going to be there. It could be the Cowboys. It could be the Eagles. It could be the Seahawks even. It could be so many teams in the NFC. The Bears, the Packers, even the Vikings could rebound. There are so many great teams in the NFC. You're going to have to play this one to the finish. Yeah. You can't give up on the marathon. The Saints are going to need this win, and they're going to get it at LP Field. Ugh, burns me to say it. But the Titans lose to the Saints.
It's the Nissan Stadium now.
It is. Oh, yeah, whatever. I'm that big of a Titans fan.
Week 17, they do find themselves going away again. And before I go into that, Andrew, it is baseball season. You're 100% right. By all means, man, throw into the community tab if you want us to talk about something during our show. We'd love to talk about baseball, but it's just so hard to talk about when the season is so young still.
Yeah, I mean, we still got about 80 games to go. Andrew, on top of it, it's tough to talk about baseball because there's so many teams that have stuff going on, but it's just business as usual for them because the season's so long. It's a difficult sport to talk about. If you've got something particular, feel free to bring it up, and we'll talk about it. We just talked about Tampa Bay not being able to sell tickets and splitting time in Montreal.
We did.
But what's there to talk about? Things can change on a dime in baseball. Somebody's ace could get hurt, and all of a sudden we're talking about the season's over because that guaranteed win or that top starter for your team is gone. So
no doubt
baseball's a tough sport to talk about. We want to preview the NFL because that, again, not only the interest, it's the sport everybody cares about. If you have something particular you want to talk about, we're always down to talk about it. Like you said, throw it in the community tab. We'll get around to it.
No doubt about it, man. I mean, trust me, I'm watching baseball. That's what's going on right now.
And Deo is right. It is always football season. Even though he's a Colts fan.
The College World Series I think
it's about to finish. Is it tonight? It's Vandy in Michigan.
Yeah,
right?
So the last game is tonight. So I mean, it's just, man, don't get me wrong. I'm watching this stuff, but man, football is it. I mean, I'm not trying to knock any sport about it, but you guys all love talking football, so that's what we want to do. But if you guys want to talk about anything else, like I said, again, throw it in the community tab so we could talk about that with you guys. It matters the most that you guys are involved in this conversation. That's the reason why we're doing it. I don't want to ignore any of these conversations. Chris also says the Colts are going to win a Super Bowl this year.
Can I respond to that? Or
do you want to? No.
For the love of God, I hope not. I mean, I'm a Titans fan, okay? I don't hate the Colts. I kind of hate the Colts. I don't hate the Colts because I know they're good. I don't think they're there yet. I think the roster needs a little more fleshing out. I like Andrew Luck. I think he's maybe a top 3 quarterback, top 5 at worst in the NFL. But I think you need to see a little bit more out of these wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton's a great player. You've got some tight ends that seem like they're good. But I think the offensive line needs to show some consistency. I think they need better running play out of Marlon Mack or whoever is going to take that, Nyheim Hines, anyone else.
Right.
And the defense needs to get better. I like the Justin Houston signing. The Colts are a good team because of their quarterback. I think Andrew Luck has dragged this team much higher than it could be. But they got to add more if they're going to beat teams like the Saints, teams like the Rams, teams like the Patriots. They need to add. Maybe next year's their year. For me, anyway. and as a Titans fan, I hope they crash and burn. But you got to give credit where credit is due. The Colts are great. And they're great because Andrew Luck is so great.
Let's talk about Week 17.
Everyone's coming at me in the comments. I can see that.
Where the Saints have to go on the road in their season in North Carolina against this Panthers team, which is more likely not playing anything for more than an upset. Even though Drew Brees took a seat last year during the Week 17, I don't actually see this year him having the chance to even sit.
Right.
Or, yeah, there you go. The luxury of sitting during Week 17. That again, like I said, I think the Falcons are going to be hot on their tail, plus other teams as well as like the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think that they will have to play their starters all the way through Week 17, which does suck for an aging 40-year-old quarterback who might be close to 41.
I agree. Even if they don't have to play him, and this is Taysom Hill, I'm guessing by now the Panthers are probably resting Cam Newton because he's probably not going to be 100%.
Bridgewater.
No, I'm talking about the Panthers resting. What did I say? Taysom Hill starting,
yeah.
And maybe it is Bridgewater. They started him last year. I think it's because they wanted to keep Taysom Hill healthy. They said there's a chance we need him in the playoffs. I think Bridgewater's the third option for the Saints team, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think the Panthers at this point might even rest Cam Newton. This might be another battle of backups, and we see Tyler Holcomb or I don't even remember what his name is.
I don't remember either.
versus Teddy Bridgewater, because neither of these teams care about it. I think the Saints may play harder because they need the bye. Beyond that, the Panthers are probably out of it by now. Yeah. With Cam Newton being hurt, I don't think they're going to have a great year. Let me go to some of these comments because I want to see everybody's comments about the Colts here really quick. Ian says he's not if you talk about that garbage fire that is the New York Mets. Look, it's just too bad for guys like Syndergaard and DeGrom that they're stuck in a place like the Mets. Just buy some bats, spend the money, go win you some championships, pretend you're the Yankees for once, and buy some guys that can hit the ball and let these aces carry you the rest of the way. I mean,
DeGrom's a stud.
And here we are, years removed, where we're like, we've known these guys are great pitchers, and they've never put it together. Yeah. The Mets, they need to call me to be their GM, is what they need to do. And guess what I'm going to tell the owner? Open the wallet, let's win something for once. Call Darryl Strawberry, come back. Moving forward. Dale says Colts versus Bears in Miami for the Super Bowl. Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking Colts versus Miami. I was going to say, yeah, they win that. No, it won't be Colts versus Bears, Dale. I don't think so. Maybe the Bears make it. I don't think the Colts are there. And this isn't me being a hater. This isn't me hating on your team. I'm trying to stay objective here. I just think when you look at the AFC, you still have to find a way to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots that seem to just match up really well against these guys. You still have to beat the Chiefs, who are a better roster than you are, especially in the offensive side of the ball. This is the Chiefs team that isn't quite as far along when you look at all the rest of the positions. Take quarterback out of it. T.Y. Hilton's a great player, but would you say he's better than Tyreek Hill? Probably not. You don't have a tight end to keep up with Travis Kelce. You don't have the same offensive line, even though they had a great year last year. You need them to do it again. And that's a difficult thing to do in the NFL. You don't have the running backs, even though Kansas City doesn't have a great running back at this point. Like, it's pretty much a wash for me. I look at this matchup. They have a lot of challenges in the AFC that are, frankly, quite farther along, except for quarterback on this roster. I think the Colts might be maybe another AFC championship team, maybe second round. I just don't know that they got the muscle to get there. Not yet. They're trending in the right direction, as much as that burns me to say. Chris Ballard's doing a great job. Just takes time.
They have Andrew Luck, and that's the best way I could put it. I mean, as a rookie, his second year, his third year before he got injured, he pushed this team further and further into the playoffs, closer to a Super Bowl. Now that he's healthy, now that he's shown that he's healthy, they're finally putting a team around him. They have all kinds of cap space to make it happen. Do I think it's this year that you're gonna see them in the playoff or in the Super Bowl? No, I don't. I don't see them in the Super Bowl. I definitely see them in the playoffs. But it might be a year or 2 years away before you see this team where it's like they are the team that goes to the Super Bowl almost every year in the AFC. They're that step away.
The only way I will say they can do it this year is if they had a draft like last year where you just grab like a Darius Leonard and you get an impact player like their offensive guard
Nelson,
whose name I always forget, Quentin Nelson.
Yeah.
If you have one of those drafts where you get Rock Ya-Sin, who's now an elite shutdown corner off the get-go,
which might be a possibility.
No, it's not. But I'm saying if that's the case, or you have any of these other guys, their receiver they drafted, was it Paris Campbell they drafted? If you have him show up and be another T.Y. Hilton out there, then yeah, maybe they have a chance. But that's like a once in a lifetime draft or once in a generational draft they had last year when you got Leonard and Quentin Nelson. As great as Chris Ballard is, you can't put that kind of onus on him and say he's going to have another one of those in a row. If you do, then I'll say they're contenders. They're not there yet. You need a couple years for those guys to develop.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Also, going back to the comments, Ian says football is life. How could the Colts win the Super Bowl when the Steelers are? All I can say is, Ian, how can the Steelers win the Super Bowl when the Browns already got that division on lock? Ooh. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But, again, you talk about a challenging division to win. A lot of these divisions have three great teams that you have to go and beat out. The Steelers have to beat out the Ravens and the Browns, and you look at the way these guys have made moves, and the Steelers have kind of lost pieces. The Steelers have their work cut out for them. I would take the Colts over the Steelers today.
I would, too.
Yeah. Also, Chris says I'm wrong, and that I believe he's talking about the Colts here when he says they're going to win two. They were 2 games away from women getting this. I think he means they were 2 games away from winning it all.
Yeah,
I think that's what he's trying to say. Yeah, I mean they were doing okay. They had. I think they played a team that they matched up really well against in Houston. It's one that they knew, and if you look, they scored 21 quick points, and then what happened? They got shut down in that playoff game by Houston. They kept them off the board. They only let Houston score 7 more, but the offense kind of fizzled out a little bit, and then Kansas City put them to shame, right? Kansas City showed them there's a pretty big gap between the elite teams and where the Colts are. So unless you get some kind of addition, like maybe Justin Houston goes back and has 12 sacks or 15 sacks this year, unless you added something that's going to totally make this team look different, you're going to need something to get you to that next level.
Ian says, you guys deserve to be on Fox or ESPN. Nah, you guys are better. Down to earth. These, I think he said rations would try to ruin you. Keep this up. Thanks for the show. Ian, thank you so much for that grateful comment. It means the world to us, man. And as much as we would love to be on Fox and ESPN, we'd love to be on Sports Around the Bar. Screw them.
Don't say that too quick. We're in conversation. No, I'm kidding. We're not, but we appreciate the compliment, man. It's always great. Also,
when I say screw them, I mean pay me first, and then maybe.
Dave says, sorry, we're on the Saints here. They'll win the division and lose to the Chicago at home in the NFC Championship. It's possible. I like the Bears a lot too. I don't know. Don't ask me about the playoffs yet. The season hasn't even started. Honestly, Drew Brees could get hurt in week 4 and all this could be out the window.
It's out the window.
But those are 2 teams that I absolutely love this year. I love the Saints. I love the Bears. Can't wait to see what happens with them. I still like
for
the
sure
Saints
in the NFC side
at this point.
100%.
Probably. Also, going to a couple of Sean's comments here. He wants to know why the Dallas Cowboys, why the Bills have to play the Cowboys on the road. It rotates. It has to do with the NFL scheduling. Sometimes they look at everything, but it usually rotates. Usually, when you're playing cross-conference opponents, you play somebody on the road, and then the next 4 years when you see them, you get them at home. So it's just the Bills' turn to be on the road here. Also, he wants to know what we think about the New York Yankees. You see this hat? This guy loves them. I can't stand the Yankees. I don't like buying championships, but I got to admit,
they don't even have the highest.
Okay, for like the first time in forever.
No,
we're not
it's
getting
been
into
the
this.
last like 6 years.
Yeah, and how many have they won since then?
None.
Exactly.
So then why are you
when
mad?
they pay all the money, they win everything, and then when they don't,
just wait a year or two.
The Yankees are doing fine. The Yankees are always going to be fine because I think 30% of baseball fans are Yankees fans.
Whoa.
Major League Baseball will do what it takes.
There's a lot
to
of
keep
Braves
the Yankees.
fans.
There's a reason the Yankees have their own television network and no other MLB team does. We're not going into that.
We're not going to go into it. Guys, again, thank you so much for all the comments, likes, and shares. It means the world to us, man. We appreciate everything. Just a special thanks, obviously, to Ian and that great comment that you gave us. But everyone's comments matter, so I just want to throw a shout-out to everyone. Joey, Nate, Joseph, Sharif, Perry, Kenny, Martavia, Sean, Matthew, Andrew, Chris and Deo. You guys mean the world to us. Thank you so much.
And if you didn't comment, you were just watching, we appreciate you too. Obviously, we have a show because you guys are here. It's fun talking with you. That's the entire reason we do this. Drew, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I think the Saints are a good possibility of being themselves in the Super Bowl.
We have them 12-4. If we didn't announce that before,
We did
a
not.
12-4 finish for the Saints. We see them as being one of the best teams in the NFL, even in 2019. The question is going to be, can Drew Brees keep up that intensity into the playoffs to finally win one of these things for New Orleans?
Well, second time.
Okay, for the first time in a while, I mean.
Yeah.
I was just talking about the last 2 years. What do you mean, Drew Brees won a Super Bowl before? Anyway, before we get out of here, I just want to say special thanks again to each and every one of you. We will be back on Wednesday. There's too many W's. We will be back on Wednesday to talk about another NFL team. I believe it's the Bengals next. So, just trying to get your hopes up. That's going to be fun to talk about. Come crap on the Bengals with us. And we're also going to talk about everything going on in the news. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We will see you then.
See ya.